And see, enlightenment, you can't say that's authoritative. I mean,
I
even if
can
it's
say it.
yeah, you can say that, but you can't force someone else to believe
Wait,
that.
I can force
are we
somebody
live
else
again?
to agree with it. Sure, that's what I'm trying to do.
Are we
Okay.
live again?
I think we're back.
Yeah, we're live again. As far as I know, it's a pretty big, yeah, storm right now. So I'm not sure.
So
But
for
I
me, it's
hope
just a
so.
matter of how would you describe to a 5-year-old enlightened? You can't, right? There's just no way to describe all that. And someone who isn't interested in being
Yeah, you
enlightened,
can. You can just be like, it's the best, happiest, most
okay,
amazing state imaginable that few
okay,
people ever achieve. That's all you
okay,
have to say.
okay, good. And that's purple. That's it. That's the best. That's the best
Yeah,
state of
so you're
mind.
describing a state
How do
that
you get how do
people
you
have
get
no
there?
access to, and that's a
Well,
problem.
okay, but that's up to you though. If you want to be enlightened, well, there's a certain process to that. If you don't want to be enlightened, if you're a Christian, well, they don't call it enlightened. They've got their own beliefs as far as what's the highest state of mind. And
Uh-huh.
so it's the same on the color chart. Well, what do you mean? What state is that? Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
I
put
don't
it
know
on
that
there.
I don't think it really translates.
No, but you just describe it as desirable. Okay, so how do you get to that state? Well, if you believe in God and you're a Christian, well, you got to do this. If you believe in karma, there's certain things you have to do or be aware of. And to get to enlightened in your state, it's years of study. You have to talk to someone who knows what they're talking about. Whatever that path is, that's going from somewhere less than that to get to here.
Where is
So
here?
some state of mind that's not as superior as this.
Not as what?
Well, whatever you want to call it. Not enlightened means you aren't over to the far right. Enlightened is whatever your peak state of mind is, that's what you put in purple.
Okay. And so if that's the
Okay?
case, there's no calibration for this thing. So the information is not reliable.
No, but you can say, if you say I am enlightened, then you say, okay, this is my state of mind as far as, not 24/7, or I don't know how enlightenment works. Is it
Yeah, enlightenment is a 24/7 thing. That's
okay?
kind of how it works.
Kind of like I think
If
you
you're
had said somewhere.
flip-flopping, you're not enlightened yet, basically.
Okay, good. Okay, so you want a sustained state of mind superior to other states of mind. That's it.
Do
That's it on the
you?
chart.
You can't really say that about everybody.
No,
You can
no,
say that
no, no,
about
no. But
yourself.
you are right. That's what I'm saying. Though. That's a personal thing. So for you, someone that considers enlightenment the peak experience, well, that's how you draw it out here.
Well, I'm not a person. I mean, that is the peak experience.
Okay, but for
It's
some guy that loves
factual.
football,
It's an objectively factual thing, and I want to prove that point. And I'm not going to allow my authoritative statements to be relegated into the domain of hypotheticals.
no, mine. All mine does is say, well, for you, that is this state. For someone who just loves the Super Bowl, this is going to the Super Bowl and winning. Same
Well, it's
thing.
still true of the person who is going to the Super Bowl. They're just not aware of it.
Okay, right, yes. But that's what I'm saying is at that point you have a dogmatic discussion about what is and isn't a valuable life experience.
Do you?
Well, maybe not according to you, but if you're going to talk to the guy and if he doesn't want to talk about it, he just wants to talk about football, well, then you're not going to talk to each other anymore. Not about that.
Uh-huh.
So what I'm saying is this kind of, it's the end of those philosophical fights. You just say, okay, at this point, I describe this state as being going to the Super Bowl and watching my team win. And you describe it as, well, I'm enlightened. Okay, yours is better.
So because people enjoy football, therefore my superior formalism on scientific consciousness is irrelevant?
Not irrelevant. I'm just saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to, in practical terms, you're not going to turn this guy into an enlightened person unless he wants to.
Yeah,
And
but
even if he wants to,
I am being very practical. I'm saying I want to do scholastic curricula because people should at least know how to think properly. And then if they want to go further, they should have the option to. And that's about it.
well, that's something, man. See, Jen, every time you say something, it's exactly how I feel, except you get into the weeds as far as.
Well, no, the
I
mechanism.
don't
We
mean
disagree. We disagree on the mechanism. You're
right. Okay,
visualizing like
but
a
the
bunch of
result's the same.
eggheads into some sort of lab doing like calibrations on a computer. I'm imagining like a school with gardens and and a bunch of people that basically live there full time, discussing philosophy full time and engrossed in that. And anybody else's opinion on philosophy than those people who are spending all their time on it is not really particularly important.
Okay. Well, see, that's where we agree also, though. I mean, except the philosophy part. Philosophy is, if that's what you want to talk about, awesome. That's the state of mind that you seek.
Well,
Go for
everything
it.
ultimately stems from philosophy, even science. So,
Yeah.
I mean, philosophy is definitely more foundational than science, but that's actually a weakness right now because we don't have the depth or complexity to go that deep and actually have it be profitable.
That's where I flipped the script because I've got a computer, a way for a computer to interpret philosophy. So now you've got a philosopher king that runs on a couple bucks of electricity a day.
Yeah. So again, like I said, like these proclamations are quite sinful.
Okay.
You're basically saying a computer can do my job better than I can. And I'm saying maybe not.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. A computer will be able to make decisions for a population. It can evaluate more factors. It can remember there's only one thing that's subjective, right? That's the state of mind. The amount of money spent and the amount of energy used, those are both objective things. You can measure those to very close tolerances. Agree?
I'm aware that we can precisely measure many things. The important thing is whether these things we can measure precisely tell us anything about the greater metaphysical backdrop in which these very precise measurements are made.
Okay. So that's the other half of this is, well, you ask people, how are you feeling? Well, this guy just won, his team won the Super Bowl. He's happy. Oh, well, she's enlightened. She's happy. Oh, well, this guy likes whatever, his religion, and he's happy
It's
with
a
the
different
religion.
type of happiness. It's like,
Yeah, it's different, but it's a desirable state for each of those people.
no,
You
it's
can't
not.
discard. Well, it is for this guy. He won the Super Bowl. You're gonna tell me he's not in a good? He can't have fun with that?
Okay, so what you're saying is that what makes people feel good makes people feel good. I'm saying that's tautological. How are
Right.
you applying this knowledge? It's all about, if you're going to do something technical like this, it's all about in the application. This is why I said you got
Okay.
to do a
So
case study and then show how the case study. That's why I suggested you apply this method to my theory, which you can't, and
well,
then you'll see why my theory encompasses your theory and any other type of numerological mysticism. Because honestly, I'm done with numerological mysticism. I'm tired of it being a subject that doesn't go anywhere, and it hasn't gone anywhere since Pythagoras. So clearly something's missing, and that's what it is. And you're saying, well, I want to have my little numerological mysticism grift, and I'm saying, well, no, I'm taking. This is
Wait.
me taking out the grifters. There shall be no grifters in the future. It will not be
What do you
allowed
mean
to
by
pretend to know
numerological
these things, to be like,
mysticism?
oh my God, here's my solution. It's like, no, there's only one solution. You don't get a fucking vote.
What do
Sorry.
you mean by numerological mysticism?
Well, how familiar are you with the teachings of Pythagoras?
Fairly familiar.
Well, so he did that. He did numerological. I can't even fucking pronounce this word here, but he did numerological mysticism.
mine is just colors. How you feeling today? And then you
Sorry,
take a
but
poll.
colors counts as part of numerological mysticism, because numerological mysticism is any type of unfalsifiable, countable system. It doesn't matter if you dress it up with colors. I mean, I'm sure people dress it up with colors all the time. It's still considered numerological mysticism.
Okay, but it's also in a way that a computer can recognize. So what that's different about the whole history of the world is, well, we have an internet and we have quantum computers. We'll throw it into there and see what happens. You could do this on a cave wall. This is low tech. You can do it with kids in kindergarten with a coloring book. That's the only difference
Yeah, that's the
is
point, is that so many people have been able to do things like this that numerological mysticism has become a complete fucking joke that nobody gets anything beneficial from except for the ability to LARP as some sort of sage. So that's a problem. I mean, people like you are the reason why the teachings of Pythagoras aren't respected as they should be.
okay. How about this? I'm just wondering where do we disagree? If you have a population of people, your goal is for them all to be enlightened.
No, it's
Okay.
not. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I
You just
already
got done
said this
telling
once
me
during the
you're
show.
gonna
I
force
already
people.
explained to you once during the show that the point of civilization is not to enlighten everybody, because that is not possible or anywhere remotely
Okay.
near possible at this time. So why would I want to put something into motion that is impossible?
How many people do you want to be in this state?
What I want
Angry.
is for anybody who wants to become enlightened to have a way to do that. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying if you
Okay.
want, because right now there's just not that way. A lot of people I'm sure want it and have no way, which is sad.
Okay. But how many people do you want in this state, angry, about ready to kill someone? Not many, right? How many do you want this way? Here, here,
I
here,
don't
here, here.
really
I,
think it's my place to say how people should feel. It's more about how people should act, and it
well, if
becomes
they're
a
all like
problem when
this,
people cannot channel their aggression in a healthy manner. The anger becomes a problem. But anger or aggression or whatever you want to call it, anger is like a putrefied form of aggression, but aggression is a human quality. The underlying problem that causes these anger things to cause things that are destructive of society is that people are not channeling their aggression in a healthy manner.
okay. Peasants with pitchforks.
Yeah, so that's like what you call the maximum entropy aggro channeling.
And there it is. There's a picture of it. Everybody mad, everybody
Right.
being entropic, burning down stuff, right? You don't want that. You want
Yeah,
them at
you want
least.
some way for people to channel their aggression in a healthy way, and
So
an app doesn't do that.
you give them bread and
Jousting
circuses.
does that. Pugil stick fighting does that.
Yeah, bread and circuses, right?
Alien
Bread.
versus Predator style first person, hunting games does that.
There's bread and circuses, sitting on your couch,
It's more
playing
than bread
video
and
games and
circuses.
happy.
It's creating the civilization you want to see. Like right now, we're basically turning ourselves from wolves into poodles, and it's like now I kind of want to be more of a wolf here, but I don't want to be like suffering the negative side of being a wolf. Like I want to be the perfect hybrid
Right.
wolf poodle, and that's the art of civilization. And what I'm saying is, right now we're just not tough enough, and so stuff like jousting, organized. I mean, I was thinking like for my next lifetime, I could be like, doing some sort of organized dance fighting type teacher. That would be fun because that would channel aggression in a really healthy way.
Yeah,
This is the
beautiful.
way we need to be looking at things. So these, you can analyze it and go into your mind forever and ever about these things, but ultimately it's an emotional problem that needs an emotional solution.
Well, if you want to solve it, you have to have a practical one. So if that practical one includes a computer that says, "Hey, you know what is a good idea?" Exactly what Jen just said. Well, why don't you do that, peasants, instead of your bread and circuses and sitting on the couch with Nintendo?
Because the peasants don't work like that. The peasants follow cult leaders. Okay, so here's a rule of thumb: the peasants are idolatrous, therefore they follow cult leaders, therefore they emulate the behavior of those cult leaders, and ultimately, without good role models, they're always going to be falling into a mode of channeling aggression, which is destructive to civilization.
Yeah, I agree that's a tendency. I do agree with that. That's what I'm saying. We don't disagree on those things. All I'm saying is, well, half the problem nowadays is the leaders themselves are not enlightened, so you aren't even getting that from the top.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
It's probably the biggest problem, right? There's no source of authority because those who have authority can't be trusted with it. So who are you supposed to turn to? Well, all of a sudden you get a computer that takes everybody's opinion and asks them, "What do you like? Oh, you don't like these leaders? Okay, well, here's some suggestions. This makes people happy. How about this? Bread and circuses. Okay, well, here's something else. It's just a suggestion machine taking the sum of human experience with the end goal of this. And there's different ways to get there. You can have bread and circuses, or you can have enlightenment, one or the other. You get the same state of mind, the same body, right? If you're running a country of 1 billion people, well, you don't want them in this state no matter what. So that's where your bread and circuses come in. Now, ideally, there's a spiritual aspect to that, and you care for someone's spiritual welfare also. But that's not possible necessarily, and maybe not even desirable if you're running the country.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
normal.
I see it as my job to care about people's spiritual welfare. Definitely.
Right. Okay. But I'm saying, do you want the government to make sure that you're to make sure of your spiritual advancement? I don't know about that. If you have a
No,
government with
because
guns
no.
determining,
This is the argument, okay? You can't force virtue. You can only force the curtailment of vice. So I can't
right?
say,
But
hey,
you
bud,
can make
you better meditate, bro. But
right. You
I
have
can
to make
say, hey,
virtue
you better not do
more
this bad thing
desirable.
or else. I can say that, but I can't basically intimidate people into virtue
No, but
because
you can
intimidation is not a
incentivize
virtue.
them. You can
What?
incentivize them. You can incentivize them. Okay?
That's the whole point is incentivize. It's not even about incentivizing because then it's like you're tricking people into enlightenment. It's like, no, These are the facts. If you want it, you're welcome to come and see about trying to get it. But I have to warn you that is extremely difficult. And there will be a period where you're really feeling like, a lot of really bad feelings. Because you got to purge all your bad feelings before you can enter the enlightened state. So there's going to be a period of detoxification. How's that going to fit into your thing? The fact that the long-term play, it has short-term costs.
Yeah, well, that's part of the system. Is if you look at the system, it acknowledges that at every step. Well, you can't have this sustained forever because everyone goes through hard times, tough times, whatever. You have this vibration of this psychological state. This is preferable, but yeah, of course you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days, medium days. You know, that's normal. Everybody knows that. To deny that is silly. So knowing that, what state do you prefer to be in? What are the best ways to do that? The least expensive, the most negotropic ways to do that? Well, here's some suggestions. Bugs and mushrooms, right? So some of them you're going to take seriously and some you aren't. But you have this push, you have a single direction to push all of culture. Or not push,
and not
but attract.
So enlightenment is like a mountain. So when you're at the top of the mountain, you can see everything. So you can understand why there's an essentially undivided nature to consciousness. But when you're not at the top of the mountain yet, you can't. And then when you are climbing it, you may not take the same path. So there isn't a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, that's where mine allows whatever variation to get to any path.
Well, how are you going to know what variations to make, right? Like
you can't know that. Not for every single person.
How?
Everyone's got different personalities and different preferences. Right?
But you need someone who's a knower. Behind the curtain, you need a knower. That's why the Socratic method functions as a pile of garbage and a rhetorical tool rather than an inquiry tool, is because you need this is sort of predicated on a perfect knowledge. You're saying, well, the computer has perfect knowledge. No, it has one type of computing capacity. That's not the same thing as perfect knowledge.
Okay, but that's the same one that other people generally refer to as knowledge. If you're talking about a spiritual knowledge, that's debatable because
no, your computer bullshit is fucking debatable as to whether it's knowledge.
No, but I'm saying if you just say the word knowledge, what knowledge are things that you can measure, right? Well, that's one form of knowledge. You're talking about other forms of knowledge.
Information is what you measure, essentially.
Right.
When you have an electron going through a slit, and then it registers there. The energy in the electron's conserved, but you get I was going to say veiling, but you get a spreading out of the potential positions of the eventual waveform, and then you get some information out of it. That's not knowledge. Computers are really good at parsing information. I'll give that to computers. I'm not intimidated by computers.
No, I get that. But take your photon. What color is the photon? Right here. Let's take a snapshot of the color. What colors do you want?
About what colors the photon? It's an undefined question. Colors don't exist on that scale. So again,
it exists on the scale of the photon that you're shooting through there, right? I mean, either it's a visible photon or not.
A numerical method problem, or to be able to pose a good question. Like, what's more important in the thought process?
Oh, beautiful. I'm glad you said that, because this places the importance on the question. Because here are the answers. You ask the right question. You want to ask the right questions that lead someone to this color.
I don't want to do that. No. Basic skills of applied science that they don't need to pursue a spiritual lifestyle. I just want to say, here's your basic cookie cutter, don't run with scissors, stuff like don't drink a lot of water after a meal, stuff like that. The other stuff, the more moral, imperative, idealism domain, you don't get that shit unless you come knocking on my door. And
okay. See, Dan, we're in exactly the same spot here. This just puts it in a way that a computer can deal with. And it doesn't matter. If they go knocking on your door, awesome. But if they want to go to the Super Bowl, that's good too, as long as they aren't burning down the place. All this does is take snapshots of psychological states. It doesn't care what that psychological state is.
Okay, but again, you have to establish the significance and what actual valid information can you draw from this. And even then, there's no knowledge at this point. You haven't interpreting is where the knowledge comes.
No, but that's up to the culture to define that, what's valued.
Well, then you need to
know,
give them a means of interpreting your system. You need to say, this is exactly how it's done. Frankly, I think that's a pretty impossible question, because you're talking about levels of complexity and thinking that have no analogs in this culture
n-
or language.
right.
And
But
you
if
don't
you
even
had
know
to,
the answer to the question. So you're saying, well,
no, but you could,
I'm gonna try to answer the hardest question of all mankind, and I know nothing, but I'll probably be okay.
no, but you don't have to know the specific answer. You just have to know that it's positive, negative, or neutral. And as long as it's
No, you have
not,
to trust that that means something, and you can't, because short-term good feelings often mean long-term suffering.
well, of course, but that's well known too. I mean, you think a computer wouldn't notice that pattern? That's first thing.
Computers don't notice patterns.
Well, of
Noticing
course
a
they
pattern
do.
is asking a question. It's not answering one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here, perfect. Okay. Then this is the one where the computer doesn't ask the question. The computer only has answers. It depends on the question you
Yeah,
ask.
the computer only has answers. Therefore, it's down to the question.
Right.
That's
So
why
who
my
asked?
method can easily be put into a computer, but it's trivially easy compared to actually learning how the method works in the first place.
Okay. So then
It's
all it comes
trivially
down to is
easy to
asking
put
the
this
right.
stuff into a computer. I just need the computational power to do it.
Okay, but mine can be done on a piece of paper. See,
So
that's where
mine
mine's
can be done
superior.
in the sand. That's the whole point of how I developed it.
Mi-
It can be done in
Mine
the
too.
sand, but you have to be a master, or you're not going to be able to remember the procession of events and derive the causality. You've got nothing on my system. I actually have answers, dude. The logical play is just to throw this nonsense away and learn what I know. But you have too much of an ego for that, I think. You're just going to continue to double down on this.
No, no. I'm sorry, Jen. I gotta get going. I'm always entertained talking to you. You're a great little sparring partner. Love it. But no, it's not. It's not ego. It's a matter of uh, well, sort of ego at this point because well, someone else show me a better way. I mean, you've
Yeah, and
got a
I am
way.
showing it to you and you're denying it
Okay,
because your ego is too
but
calcified.
yours isn't commercialized. Mine's on the way to being commercialized here. I haven't sold one yet. Here we
Yeah, I could
get the
easily commercialize. Commercializing is even easier than implementing as a method in a computer.
okay. Well, I'm doing it first then.
Commercialism is just about finding markets. And in order to do that, you just need superior knowledge to see what niches haven't been filled yet and how you could break into those niches.
Well, that's exactly what this is. It's a way for everyone to get exactly what they want,
I'm
and
just not
then that's
convinced that
not
it
going to
does
happen.
that,
Yeah.
right? Like what it sounds
Right.
like is just
No, no,
someone
no.
saying a bunch
Well,
of stuff that they can't back up.
maybe it's just because you don't know computers as well as I do. I'm not quite sure
Oh,
what our
don't play that game with me. Don't.
well, that's what I'm trying to figure out what it is. Because if you don't see how a computer can recognize patterns of color as opposed to anything
A
else,
computer can do what we tell it to do.
yeah.
And
And
you're
if you
not
say,
establishing how you're going to
so
get
you
the
just say,
computer to give you information that is actually going to tell you anything that you want to know.
sure, you hook this up to
It's
Amazon, get
called a signal to noise ratio.
yeah,
Your
but you
signal is mostly noise.
right. I know, but the of the noise, you only care about a couple bands of that, and you want the purple
The
end.
idea is that you don't care about any of the noise. And the noise is only introduced as an artifacting effect accidentally, because that's how people are. They take things and they just follow them and they may not actually lead anywhere.
Yeah, well, see, that is this whole system, though. Is you just tell a computer to solve for most purple results, least entropy, and most profit, or least cost, either way, whichever side you're on. Least amount of debt. That's it. So every decision can be evaluated that way. How much energy does it take? Okay. How much does it cost? Okay. Now take a poll. What do people think about that? Just take a vote. And then you determine at what point what kind of vote you want. Does everyone have to be purple to do it? Does everyone have to be green or better? Is it okay to have 10% of the people upset with the decision? I mean, as it is right now, democracy is 50% of the people are all upset. So this presents that all the noise and just tells you of that noise, what color do you want? Do you want white noise? Do you want purple noise? Green to purple noise? That you pick how much of that noise you want to listen to.
I don't want to. I want to minimize the noise function for my.
Yeah, but that's impossible with a free
No, it's
society.
not impossible. I literally did it with my theory. The measurement limit is the minimizing of the noise. because it's telling you what your optimum signal could be.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what this does. You
So
just get the
everything is
purple votes.
calibrated relative to an optimum signal, which is exactly how it needs to be done. Everything needs to be done relative to the unified whole.
Yeah, from red to purple. What's
You
your
don't have a
opinion?
unified whole to start from, though.
Well, you ask a question. How many people are you going to ask? How whole do you want to be? If you want to ask every single person,
Well, if you want to be able to answer every single question, you have to have a unified field model.
well, you ask the people. That's the whole point of this is a practical
Why
model.
the flying fuck would I ask the people? They don't know anything.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about. Mine is practical. Mine is just talking about a government sort.
Yeah, so you're saying, well, let me
government.
prop up the illusion that the opinions of the laity matter, and I'm saying, what's the point of doing that?
Because at a certain point, if everybody's upset with you, you're not going to be in power.
And so what? That's just the natural progression of things.
Okay, but don't you want? If you don't want power, you at least want order. You don't want to be.
Well, you want order, but some people thrive in chaos, dear. You're very naive.
Yeah. Well, no, of course I know that. Of course I know that. And that's what you get cops for, right?
What are you talking about?
Well,
They increase
chaos.
the chaos mostly.
Okay. All right, Jen. Well, we sync on everything except you don't like mine.
I don't know what you mean by we sync on everything. It's like,
well, everything you say,
I don't know what
everything
I
you
believe, because
everything you said, I agree with, except you get into the point of, you talk about certain things of karma. I don't know enough about that, or reincarnation. Those things are, that's fine for me. I don't believe that. I don't know that. If
yeah,
you've
it
got
doesn't
proof,
matter what you believe. You need to basically accept it and bring it into your life and incorporate it, because it's coming for you, whether you like it or not. And I would like to save you from the horrible cognitive dissonance of dying eventually and having horrible shock when you realize, oh my God, Jen was right. Imagine how much of a horrible situation that would be if the last thing you remember before being reincarnated is my stupid face.
What if I said I agree with everything? How would I have to act?
You would first just go inside, make the choice in your soul. Say, I'm not going to deny reincarnation anymore because I'm brave enough to face reality. And I know that in the long run, I'll be happier because it won't be scary to die. And I'll be hopefully on my way to a better life that I will create in this lifetime. I mean, that's my whole part of my reason of drilling down on this reincarnation thing is that I am concerned about people's ultimate destiny of their souls for, spiritual reasons.
Okay, well, that's what I find admirable. It's just a matter of, mine's a commercial model that disregards exactly your dogma. It just cares about how you act and how other people feel about how you act. If everybody's mad at you, well, you're the problem. If you're the
I'm
only
not. Everybody is mad at me, and I'm not the problem. Yet again, your
Jen,
system brings
I'm not
false
mad
positives.
at you.
Yet again, false positives. It's just like everybody hating me is a sign that I'm right. Don't you understand this? Like, profile other people who've been right when everyone else was wrong, and they all get treated like shit. It's like, are we going to learn this civilizational lesson sooner or later? I think sooner.
I think that's where we flip, because my mind says you are right. You're right about everything. What else do you want to know? And then just ask the questions. So yeah, we're at an impasse as far as logic here. This one just has to play out for you to see it. But I'm telling you, it's a way for a computer to digitize wisdom, and you don't believe it or you don't like it, one or the other. For me, hey, it's fun. We're doing something
Computers
interesting.
can digitize wisdom. I just don't think you have wisdom to digitize.
Okay, but if everybody's happy enough, then at least you have peace. You don't necessarily. Maybe it's not
I would
pure
go ahead and say
enlightenment.
that's pure impossible.
Well, bread and circus.
Probably have
right?
everybody in a state of stupefaction, but then they
maybe,
would just become more and more. They would end up all looking like lawn gnomes eventually. Is that what you want to look like? A lawn gnome, like who looks like a fucking balloon with no definition whatsoever?
No.
Who just lives for hamburgers?
But if your wisdom is digitized, then it will say, "Hey, this isn't good for you. Do you want to live like?" It'll ask you the same questions. It'll say, "Do you want to look like this?" Okay, then get off the couch, go take a lap.
Yeah, it's like if you don't want to look like a lawn gnome, start pugil stick fighting. That's basically the long and short form. Is it's like Okay, go ahead, translate
Exactly.
that into your system,
Exactly.
and maybe I'll be convinced.
Well, that's exactly what it does. That's the other
But
end of
but
it.
you're saying I have to translate my system into your system, and
No,
it's
no,
like
no,
you
no, no,
haven't
no, no,
given me
no.
a case scenario of your system working. Why the hell would I assimilate it? I've assimilated many methodologies throughout the years. You know, the Dirac delta, for example, is an extremely important thing that I feel proud to be able to use, and honored that Dirac came up with it.
Hey Jen,
Yeah.
have you assimilated the ultra slow light experiments using Bose-Einstein condensates from 2005?
They slowing down light using Bose-Einstein condensate.
I apologize.
You
Howie, I
said
gotta
you
go.
had to go. You said you had to go.
Yeah,
You can go, and I'll
yeah.
just chat with
Talk,
Howie for
talk to you later,
however
Jen.
long he wants to talk about. I have to see the experiments. As far as I know, the speed of light is derived from the base field. You can derive the speed of light using intrinsic qualities of solids in moving objects.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how the speed of light was originally obtained, but in these experiments that were carried out by Harvard in 2005, they actually created Bose-Einstein condensates, which I'm sure you're familiar with them, but for people who are not familiar with them, who are listening, a Bose-Einstein condensate is essentially a cluster of atoms that has been cooled down to the point where their wave functions join together as one. Uh, and they essentially act as a gigantic singular atom. Now,
Yeah,
these
quantum behavior,
yeah
right?
these experiments, what they did was they actually shot a laser through the condensate and measured the speed of the light that came out on the other side. And what they found was that they had not only slowed down the photons traveling through the condensate, but they had slowed them down immensely by a factor of a billion.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you want me to talk about that, or
I
that's
was
not
just
really
wondering if,
something like I didn't redo all of physics because some physics is right. So it's called the index of refraction. The
whoa, who's this guy?
speed, the effective speed, this is I believe Domingo. The effective speed of light will change based on something called the index of refraction. And this just sounds like through the whatever their experimental setup, they were able to create a very high index of refraction. So yeah, welcome to the show. But in terms of like going into more than that, like I don't want to change. I don't want to. What's the word? Sorry, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Like I don't need to. The whole power of my theory is that it does sort of work with a lot of the extant stuff. Like not all the obviously backdrop and axioms, but some of the theories have yielded. I'm not going to start. What's the word? Reinvent the wheel. Sorry to ramble here. Go ahead. Welcome to the show, Edgar. Is that?
Jen, Jen, you sound you sound a little bit irate this evening. What's been going on?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little sad.
Those negative emotions Librix was talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you do a helium balloon
To be
before you
honest,
came on?
to be honest, I mean he's not playing ball.
I
I feel
I
like he's
didn't
not
do.
playing ball. And like with you, I feel like you're kind of playing ball, so it's not really it's not draining. Whereas with him, he's not. I guess he's being uncooperative. In my opinion, he's uncooperative.
He's non-compliant.
I don't like the word compliant because it just sounds like, I'm just like tyrant.
He doesn't conform to you.
I'm not saying people have to. I'm just saying that if I'm going to make an argument for the sake of the argument, they're going to have to accept the axioms, which, as you've seen, creates
I mean,
triggerings.
I mean, you told him that he has no wisdom to digitize. I
I did say that because really I want to help people, and being smart is a lifestyle. And I think you understand that because I kind of see you working on your rhetoric. So you understand that it's a hobby. I don't want to say hobby in the bad way, but you know what I mean. Practice.
Sorry, I can't help but laugh every time this dude talks because it's a picture of an SS officer with the voice of like one of the chipmunks. It's just too much.
your observation skills are they're what can I say? they're,
Unparalleled.
they're exceptional. I didn't do helium. I did an Einstein boson particle. That's why my voice sounds this way.
Yeah, like I don't know what I have to say about Bose-Einstein condensate because I don't see how that's relevant to people's lives. And as ironic as this may sound, I actually do want to make my teachings relevant to people's lives. If I invoke Bose-Einstein condensate, that's kind of sounding a bit like I'm trying to sound smart. And if I can figure some way to link it, because I know it's a plasma, right? If I can link that to plasma in a meaningful way, I will. But I mean, the human conscious plasma of the mind is not really much
Well,
like
what I
other
understand about it is I think it's a super solid. It's one of the extra uh, states of matter that is very very difficult to come by in nature and very difficult to make even in a laboratory. But they do make these things.
You know, when I was a kid, I went to the orthodontist and he installed these braces, and they turned out to be really bad. Later on, we found out that the guy wasn't really an orthodontist. He was a pseudo orthogonal dontist.
Oh, okay. What did Howie would you say? Because I had a good response to that, but then I got derailed there by the joke.
So where's Duvid? Duvid's indisposed.
He's doing a fast.
He's doing a fast. Like for how long?
Piety virtue signaling. I think, gosh, I don't remember. I want to say 25 hours, but I'm actually not sure. Don't quote me on that. It wasn't so long that I felt the need to like try to talk him out of it, though. I mean, I
Is
hear
he
some
doing?
people like, "Oh, I'm going to do a 2-week water fast." I'm like, why?
Is he doing it for religious reasons or for health reasons?
I was saying it was because of virtue signaling reasons. But no, I mean, I assume it's the reason he's telling himself he's doing it is because it's a religion reasons.
Okay, so like piety, virtue signaling.
Kind of, yeah. Damn it, I wanted to respond to how he said, oh, yeah, everything's plasma. Sorry, everything's plasma, even solids. They're just in the lowest energy state. So plasma mechanics is just really hard to understand. That's why we're like, oh, we're looking for plasma. But you can look on Google and like say, you can find articles that say 98% of the universe is plasma because you can demonstrate this. Like basically what they're saying is waveform type behavior, which is restriction to a particular geometry, but non-restricted within that geometry.
I guess I'm about to put some plasma on my tongue then.
But then plasmic effects don't happen with solids, right? And they only partially happen with liquids. And then as you go up the chain, they happen more and more. So it's like
Well, I don't know.
it's a graduation into plasmic mechanics, and then there's this collapse into what appear to be like what do you call materialistic mechanics. But it's an illusion.
If you take certain substances, you can certainly get the melting effects of plasma.
Yeah, what that is like I said, it's your quantum mind becoming affected and certain eigenstates becoming inhibited and others becoming, or sorry, these would be eigenvectors, certain eigenvectors being inhibited and others being like exaggerated. That's basically going to cover your entire broad spectrum psychedelic effects. But it's like, is that not interesting enough of a theory? I think it's interesting. And then I kind of want to know like how it works exactly and whether a machine could be built to figure out, because we could like map it, and so we could theoretically get a mushroom high without taking mushrooms. Anybody else on board? Like, I feel like that's like on the verge of being unethical, but not quite.
What, simulating a mushroom high?
Yeah, that would be the applied version of it, right? Like you have to get something good enough to measure consciousness, calibrate it, and then figure out how it changes during the mushroom experience, and then map that into a generalized waveform of consciousness, which then you can project onto people to get the simulation of the effect. If we understood
What,
quantum consciousness better, we could, quote, hack things way better in this way too, right? Like I could just deduce that would be how it would have to work. Now, whether you can actually find what's called a UBM for human consciousness and how much calibration it would take, that's sort of something you'd have to actually go and check to see whether our instruments are strong enough to be able to perform such a task. But probably, Elon Musk is doing some pretty advanced stuff. The tech's probably at the point that it could do it if it's biologically possible.
but you feel that it would be unethical because of, for because of like for Vedic reasons or something?
I think it's on the border of being unethical. It's basically, yeah, it's like the edge of it, of ethical, because it's like, well, the alternative is taking the drugs, and that's going to have potentially a bad effect on your body. So if you really want to get this experience, you might as well take the less harmful way. That would be the argument.
Well, I mean, psilocybin and lysergic acid diethylamide aren't exactly harmful to the body.
Well, they can have unwanted side effects.
Mushrooms are harmful to the stomach, though, I think.
Oh no, not at all. Most of the unwanted side effects are actually a result of the way that the chemicals actually interact with the brain. They cause nausea and disorientation.
I mean, there's a lot of horror stories of ayahuasca trips too that are just, violent vomiting and really no enlightenment whatsoever.
Well, it's cheating at enlightenment. It's basically kind of Supra Librix tier, no offense, but it's like you can't take a shortcut. And when you try to take a shortcut, you sound sort of silly to like people who try to shortcut that kind of stuff sort of make example of why you can't. Because it's like, yeah, you
Well,
did some drugs.
I don't
And
I don't
so,
think
like,
I don't think that ceremony is a shortcut. I think that ceremony is simply a means of
I'm saying some
it's
people treat it that way. I'm not saying everyone does. But when I'm saying that the
yeah,
fact of doing
right.
that is itself a sinful behavior.
I think some people think that just by doing the ayahuasca that it's the results are guaranteed, but they're not. It's there's more to it than that. I mean,
Yeah, you'll get something, but people are sort of sometimes expecting insight. And I don't know if you can guarantee insight. Like, insight needs a landing pad. Okay? It's got to land somewhere. If you're an insipid fool, that insight's got nowhere to land.
an insipid fool.
How do you feel about psychedelics as a thing, Domingo?
Look, I think some people need like a kickstart, and I think psychedelics facilitate that for some people that may have been through some trauma, or people suffering from really bad addictions due to a trauma, and they're stuck in a loop of
Cognitive dissonance.
cognitive dissonance, the negative feelings, self-loathing, an inability to break a cycle of self-destruction. And I think for some of these people, the psychedelic trip acts as a kind of like a stick in the wheel and brings them to a screeching halt and allows them to kind of step out of themselves for a moment and reassess their situation. doesn't,
You know
you know,
that psychedelics, they actually do rewire the brain. While you are in a trip, you actually have more
Consciousness isn't
connections.
of the brain, dude. You got to use the quantum consciousness. But like, just to come back to what Domingo was saying, in terms of mainstream research, they have showed a link between taking mushrooms even just one time and the permanent increase of the trait of openness.
I know people that have taken mushrooms and all they get is a laughing fit. They don't gain any insight. They haven't become wiser. In fact, they remain just as stupid, if not get stupider. But it's
Yeah,
I think
because there's no
the-
landing pad. Like, you're familiar with this NPC thing, right? Of people who don't have like an inner consciousness and they're kind of like a husk. They don't have
people that are
there's no
people that are
landing
not
pad.
self-aware.
Exactly. People who lack the higher state of cognition that we relate to through abstract forms, i.e., using our imagination, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no landing pad. So the only way that mushrooms could be therapeutic for people like that would be like they would have to get to a point where their ego was developed enough that the insight would actually register to it. Because if it's just laughing, it's just like, oh, okay, you're having a sensory mix up and you're laughing because basically you've got nothing. There's nothing
Well,
going
there's
on
also
on the surface.
there's also the question of dose and usage. Because if you're like, let's say you take a small dose and you're just playing a video game, you're not going to have any insights. You're not going to have any life-changing experiences with that. But if you take a high dose in a ritual setting and have like a special ceremony, you're probably going to have some changes.
I don't know how you can possibly conclude that. That seems, I mean, I think traditionally what these things were used for was not to achieve enlightenment, but to as like an initiation into adulthood, or maybe one of the stages of adulthood. So I can see how that would
I
work, but
I
that's
think I
not
think
a guarantee of any sort. Go ahead.
I think the capacity for insight. Um, I think there's a direct correlation with a kind of mental discipline and focus that's required. That's intentional, and that has to be done starting from a sober state. You to want to you have to want to know more. You have to want to explore and search. If you don't have that motivation, if you don't have that intention from the starting point, I don't think that dose, increasing the dose or lessening the dose is really going to have any kind of significant impact on the individual. I think that there's got to be an intention there for them to want to discover.
What do you think about that, Howie? I mean, I agree with him.
I agree in part. However, due to the unpredictable nature of psychedelics, they can actually cause things to happen within your mind that you aren't ready for and you have to adapt to. For example, there are actually people who, this is actually a story that I used to hear all the time on the meta right. People were leftists and they would take LSD and they would come out of the trip and they would be alt-right.
Whoa, 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 whoa. These people probably weren't NPCs. Just because you're a leftist doesn't make you NPC. People can like Gandalf was a leftist for a while. It's basically like people who are open and able to be manipulated emotionally fall into that trap.
But
And actually, more intelligent
let's
people in
just
a
say
way
that
are kind of more susceptible to the programming.
let's just say someone is an NPC and they take these substances in a sufficient dose, their brain would be connecting in ways that they've never done.
You're
They
taking
would
a
they
pretty
could
big. Don't you think that's taking a pretty big gamble?
not necessarily. It's a
I
very
think it
small
is.
gamble in my opinion.
I think it's a huge gamble because historically, the only way to get skills like a fully developed ego is through staunch practice and getting wasted Being like, oh my God, that color is cool, doesn't constitute a staunch practice. It's like got to go on for a long time, really long time. Don't you think?
I think overdosing an NPC is just going to overstimulate them and, if anything, maybe do more damage to them.
Let's look at it this way. What's the probability that we can equivocate between tripping out on mushrooms and spending years learning a difficult discipline? Because, like, I'm sure that is how it works. Like, at some point, people realize, holy crap, I'm such a dumbass pod, and I want to stop being the butt of everyone's jokes, and I feel like a loser, and I'm dumb, and I'm going to get smarter, and I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to do it. Like, I've seen it. I'm thinking of a girl right now. I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to hurt her feelings, but she got a lot smarter because she just decided that she believed that it was possible, and it was pretty darn easy. She didn't have that bad karma, so she just got better. She doesn't come across as dumb anymore. She's not a genius, but she's built her own intelligence up.
Someone in the chat said psychedelic eco-fash rising.
It's a bit of a it's like it's part of our history. There's an argument for traditionalism, but who's going to be involved in the traditionalism? Everybody? I don't think so.
Well, I actually I wrote a little something about that not that long ago, before I got banned again. Um, let's see. It was homogeneity of culture provides stability and peace within a civilization, while heterogeneity within a civilization uh, causes more conflict, but also causes more creativity.
I would argue it's a certain type of creativity. Like if you want to follow that, your historical precedent is Christendom in Europe. Okay? Because they basically took abilities, they didn't really change that much as people, but those abilities were put into different pursuits, right?
Yeah, Christendom in Europe, uh, under the supreme reign of the Catholic Church, there was almost no diversity of culture and no technological advancement, no artistic advancement, no advancement in science. As soon as religious law was dropped and people began studying more paganism and atheism and various philosophies that had previously been off limits, that's when we had the Renaissance.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry, is there a point in there? What's the point of that?
Well, it shows the heterogeny thing that I just mentioned. Of course, you have to have a balance between these two things, otherwise the civilization just falls apart. It devours itself.
Yeah, it needs to become creative in how it approaches the problem of channeling aggression, because people will essentially get bored eventually of trends. So there need to be like new trends, right? Like I was talking before about pugil stick fighting, and that would not be in style like forever type thing. It would be in style for like a while, and then people would eventually want to know more, for example, or do something different.
It would be in style until too many people started losing eyes.
Well, you'd figure out a way to do it that wasn't dangerous to people, right? Like there is obviously going to be some way. Think of all the technology we have. Like we got people crossing the river between UK and mainland on like hovercrafts. We could do this. I mean, it'd be awesome. It's basically just a test of core strength, right? Hello?
It would become virtual pugil stick fighting with
Like in that
avatars.
movie. What was that movie called? Oh damn, I forget the name of the movie. The one where they're like clones, but they don't know they're clones. The Island. Yeah.
The Island. Yeah, I was about to say that.
Like,
The Island
literally,
was such
are
a
you
good movie.
fucking telling me we can't come up with that type of technology? Like, we already have the Wii. How much more do we need? Maybe it's already there and I just don't even know it's around yet.
Westworld explores that theme also,
I don't think I even
except
heard
instead of clones, they're robots.
Westworld. I'll have to check it out. I've never seen it.
You've never seen Westworld? Holy shit, you gotta check it out.
Maybe I have, honestly, but there's just so many movies out there. What year was it made?
It's a series. It's an HBO series.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
It's
TV
also a
series are
movie
better
from the
than movies now.
70s.
TV are just like decidedly better than movies now. Like, I think basically what was that show? Breaking Bad basically cemented that trend.
Breaking Bad, in my opinion, was just basically copying Weeds. Weeds was the first Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad
Wasn't
was
Weeds better
made it,
because
Breaking Bad made it edgier and darker.
yeah, Weeds had that chick. She was like really hot and would usually dress kind of skimpy, or at least in the advertisements. That's how they portrayed her.
I always loved the opening theme song to Weeds. Little houses, little boxes on the hillside.
Someone in the chat said I missed the point. Did I miss the point? Because if I did, I would like to get the point.
The point of a pugil stick.
I would do it just to be a good sport, even though I'm a girl. I would, if it could be made totally safe, I would indulge. I don't think I would fight girls though. I feel like there's something wrong about that, but I'd roughhouse a little bit. It could be fun.
Who would you hit Gandalf with a stick?
I don't know. I want to do it with somebody that there'd be no chance that their masculine pride would be hurt if they lost.
Shots fired, Gandalf. Shit.
I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Wait, are you talking about beating people up?
I'm talking about pugil stick fighting as a recreational activity, as a means of channeling aggression. And
Okay, I'm not familiar with the pugil stick.
Well, imagine a giant Q-tip, Howie. Giant Q-tip.
Oh, that okay. I get it now.
And
I know what
you're standing on a fucking log, dude. You're standing on the ass end of a log, dude. I don't know how high we should make the log, but it should be high enough that the fall is epic, and then they should fall into a pool of those squishy, cushiony things.
Howie, how old are you? Do you recall American Gladiators by any chance?
I never really watched that show, but I do know what you're talking about now. I've actually seen people use those at like festivals and stuff.
Also, the guy in my avatar, he used one against Spock.
Wait, is that Kirk?
It is Kirk.
Oh shit! I did not recognize him because he looks like a Nazi.
I guess your observation skills aren't that good after all, eh?
Shots fired.
Hey, well, I'm also used to him from like Priceline and stuff. Like I'm used to older him now.
Yeah, you're used to Fat Shatner.
Fatner.
Poor guy. His wife died in his pool. There's a 911 recording of him. My wife, she's at the bottom of the pool.
It's funny that you should say that, Donald Robertson, because I feel the same way about boomers. So I'm glad we can at least relate on that, eh? Old sock, old bean.
You know, the Shat has outlived the Nimoy and DeForest.
For some reason, my husband and I are listening to like a bunch of random Shatner clips. And one of them was just him like getting ultra pissed off at somebody on a Hollywood set, and I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah, he's a bit of a diva.
And apparently, like, what's his name? The gay guy. I forget. Who had like,
Sulu, George
yeah,
Takei.
yeah, had like some personal problem with him or something.
They didn't like each other.
Well, I think it. Well,
Oh
I mean, I
my.
only heard the one recording, and Shai was like, "I don't know why he has such a problem with me. Yeah, I couldn't go to your wedding. I've never spent more than 5 minutes with you off the set."
Oh my.
The indignance of this man is worth it. I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
Takei is kind of a lefty. Not kind of. He's like really, really a lefty.
Yeah, and he's definitely like a major virtue signaler. Didn't he talk about like concentration camps in Japan or something?
He was in one.
Yeah, he was actually in an American concentration camp for the Japanese.
Okay, so there's a question as to who's are bigger douchebags. I can tell you, out of all the generations, everybody's basically equally douchebag, and there's cool people in all the in all the ages, and that's pretty much what you'd expect. But generally, like, it's a question of people being wrong and being really stubborn about it, and it's on both
Millennial.
sides. And obviously, it's hard when you didn't have the internet when you were young to assimilate to this type of culture because it's very. Yeah, my height is I'm just under 5'10". I'm technically 5'9 3/4", but most guys would be like, "Oh my god, you're 6'2", because all guys around that height lie about their height. Just,
Jen, you and I are the same height.
oh my god, it's a sign.
Jen, you are totally more than 6 feet. Come on.
Well, I have a very strong projection, right? So maybe I seem taller, but it's an optical illusion. Or I guess technically a quantum illusion. Good old quantum illusions, just around the corner.
I guess it's also your fingerless rifleman gloves that make you seem more intimidating.
It's funny because I'm intimidating when I'm not trying to be, and then when I'm trying to be, people are like, "Oh my god, you're so cute." And just like having a little like, oh, like grumpy, and it's like, no, this is the time I want you to be intimidated by me. And it's like, no, that's when I
When
sound cute.
You would be a very, very dangerous dominatrix.
Because you think I'm sadistic because I've caused you pain through the cognitive dissonance, but you have to look beyond that and understand that my willingness to be honest with you is actually a greater standard of care than what most people experience.
No, I mean because of what you just described. Because when you're not trying to intimidate, you intimidate, but when you are trying to intimidate, people think you're just being cute.
Oh yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing because when you're a dominatrix and you're trying to intimidate, but not seriously.
Is a power play thing, It's a LARPing power play. I mean, that's what we are. We're like a hierarchy of domination and submission, and it's just like this cultural undercurrent, and it's basically what most people spend most of their time obsessing over.
Jen, would you challenge Claire to a bugle stick fight? Would she be the exception?
The thing is, like, I don't want to enable her. And that would probably enable her, and then she'd enjoy it, and then I'd just be probably all neurotic about whether it was going to be following ahimsa or not. So to avoid myself having to analyze whether that would violate ahimsa, I'm just not going to do it. Because I'm considering the ahimsa of thinking about that process and having to analyze it. I don't want to spend that much mental faculties analyzing whether this violates ahimsa.
I'm sorry, ahimsa?
Nonviolence. My principles are minimizing suffering, which means maximizing nonviolence. And so it's important to me not to do, violent things unless I absolutely have to.
What if she put on like a sumo suit with some headgear, like the same gear that, like...
Oh no, I mean, even if there's no guarantee she get hurt, like, I don't want the image of that happening because I'm already like so associated with her. And it's like, I don't want to be associated with her as my main thing, as my main like other person. That's just like, no, it's just like some random hilarious, like a comedy act kind of thing. It's like that's not my main. I don't want that anybody making that association. And a pugilistic fight might suggest more
I
intimacy
I
between
think
Claire and I than really exists.
I think it might be too late to avoid a comedy theme association with you, Nicole.
Well, that's the thing. Like when people think of me, they think, yeah, Jen does a comedy act with Claire, but then Jen has, people who take her things seriously who have nothing to do with Claire also. And those are the important people.
I'm kind
I
of surprised I haven't seen her in the chat, actually, now that I think about it.
I had to take
It-
her out of the being allowed to comment in the chat
Oh,
because
I see.
she was harassing me on Luke Ford's show. And it's just like, I have an image that I have to maintain. And being like pain stalked by Claire Caw in Luke Ford's chat is not part of that image. So I said, like, don't at me, brah. And she added me again. And it was like, this is literally your last chance. And you know what happened next. So I can't really have somebody I've blocked on YouTube chatting in my live stream.
Don't at me, cabra.
Well, it's you understand what I mean. It's just like, I'm here. Yeah, there's a bunch of freaks, and whatever measures I take to isolate myself from the freaks is my choice. And pugilistic fighting with Claire Caw seems like it would be counterproductive.
Well, it's just that you give her such verbal lashings on her channel. I just figured,
Don't
knocking her
sell
off a
yourself
log.
short, man. You've given her some really good. You've given her a couple of good ones. I thought, holy shit. And I mean, I saw you proffer arguments that were completely outside of the domain of the microstates of arguments I had proffered.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that. I mean, look, yeah, for sure, I've given her a verbal ass kicking. I mean, I would hit her with a bugle stick, to be honest.
So the
But
real
I
question is,
just,
Howie, when are you going to debate with Claire?
I did actually want to bring this back to psychedelics because there was a point that I wanted to make about them. Were you aware that both LSD and psilocybin work on the 5-H2A serotonin receptor in the brain?
I accept that the mind is a quantum computer, dude. And in
in
doing
11
so,
dimensions.
I understand that the information multiplexing takes place within the mind, not within the body. So I'm not looking in the body for things that don't exist. And you're saying, well, let's just look at the body a little more. And I'm saying you have to incorporate the mind into your viewpoint as an information circuit. So information is going from one place to another, to another, to another, and there's a quantum mind
Well,
and a physical body that they can relay between. And you're gonna have stuff happening in the physical body, but unless you incorporate it into a information relay system with quantum mind, your predictions aren't gonna make any sense.
see, my axioms on this are the brain is like a receiver. And so when the receiver is wired up properly, it can receive more signals.
Yeah, but it's also a projector. So the body is not just a receiver, it's a projector too. It's a transponder. Would you like me to prove why it's a projector as well as a receiver? Hello?
I can imagine why.
All right, well, why don't
it's
you tell us why it is?
projector.
Test your knowledge. Come, step right up and come on into the intellectual pugilistic fighting of your dreams. Next, we have Howie, who's going to answer a very important philosophical
Well,
question for us.
I haven't read your works on how the mind is a projector or how the brain is a projector, but from the from the viewpoint that matter is the basic state of existence and gives rise to everything else, the complexity of the human brain
Wait.
provides.
Did you just say that matter gives rise to everything else?
Well, from the viewpoint of that, where matter is the basis of everything, the materialistic viewpoint.
Is okay, so the materialist viewpoint.
Even in the materialistic viewpoint,
You
the
do
brain
realize
would
that consciousness
technically.
itself is built into what you call matter.
Yes, I recognize
The
that.
waveforms. Because if it was
I would say
matter,
one of the
dots, but it's not. It's waveforms.
I would say one of the best pieces of evidence that suggests the mind is capable of projecting and transmitting is the placebo effect.
I'm actually talking about the body, not even the brain. Howie was talking about the brain. I'm talking about the body. And we're talking about whether it's a projector and how can we establish that it has the ability to be a projector.
I thought you said the mind is a projector. I thought you were talking about the mind receiving and transmitting.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about the brain and Howie said he thinks the brain is a receiver. And I said it's also a projector. That was the series of arguments. So it's a physically based argument. So I'm looking for a physical argument that would support the position that the brain is capable of projecting.
I would say the brain can project through the eyes, through the optical nerves.
Oh, that's a good argument. That's an actual literal sensory argument because it feels like projection. Therefore, it is projection. This is how I structure the argument, unless Howie wants to give it a try.
Now let's hear your
Okay,
let's hear your idea.
I don't actually take the position that the brain is a projector because the brain as the projector is a harder position to defend than the body as a projector. So what I'm saying is the body must be projecting the mind on some level because there exists a mechanism to funnel energy from the body into the mind. Therefore, it's projecting. Eating food, energy, boosting the mind. So that's what projection is, pushing outwards. So you can't isolate the projection function to the brain is my point, because it's actually not isolated to the brain. The projection function is performed by the entire body. It's just that it has an energetic maximum in the brain. So the majority of the computation is performed by the brain.
But Jen, don't you feel like the body is just an extension of the brain?
Well, in the grand cosmic sense, it is, but there's a canonical inversion that happens between those timescales. So when you're talking about being born, you got your little 5-week-old fetus, and then you got your little quantum waveform of a person who died a while ago and their consciousness decayed down to a teeny tiny little thing that can fit into a 5-week-old fetus, synchronizes with the fetus. And so from that perspective, the mind dictates the progression of the fetus relative to itself. The mind did not determine the constituent parts of the fetus. The parents did, correct?
Well, on a physical, I mean, if we're talking on a physical level, biological level,
It's
I would
both.
say that
It's both
I would say
physical
that
and spiritual.
I would say that 5-week-old fetus is an extension of the mother's brain.
It's an extension of the mother's brain and the father's. It's half and half, right? So it's just basically neutral flesh, inanimate, what we'd call inanimate flesh. It's not
Right, but I mean,
and it
but
becomes
the
self-animated. The minute you get a heartbeat, it's self-animated. So the instance of the first heartbeat is the self-animation process. So at that point, the rate of the change of the body is dictated by the mind. So the mind starts putting energy into the body starts putting energy into the mind, heartbeat in, mind puts information and energy into the body, heartbeat out, and chugs along. So they're working in very close tandem to each other. But at that scale, at the reincarnation scale, you can see how it's clearly the mind dictating the progression of the body. But then day to day now, because the body is fully formed, right? By the time you're an adult, your body's not changing very much. It's responsible for the base state. So at this scale, we would say that the body creates the mind. Your basic overall state of mind is something that your body puts energy into projecting. And then your mind makes changes to your body that's already there. Whether it's already there in the fetal sense or whether it's already there in the living now as yourself sense, it's that level of changes. The impetus to change in the body is the mind. Hey, what's going on, Blue Monday? Thanks for coming to listen to the stream. I think it's actually been a really great convo today because people are, I guess I sort of could have been that cranky with Supra Librix right off the bat, but then it's like, okay, I'll give them some chance to be super, more accommodating, and then gradually just go back to what I probably should have done in the first place. So what does the audience think? Should I have been a bitch right away? Which is what my first instinct would have been. Because I can just do that with anybody and just dismiss whatever crap. I just choose to be polite. But or should I have just or did I manage it good, or should I have just been nice to him forever?
Well, you've been streaming with this guy quite a few times, and it's just that when I tuned in, I noticed your tone was very different this time from previous streams with him.
Yeah. Well, at
I was
some
just
point I had to
wondering
put my foot down.
what caused that.
I wanted to put my foot down on the first time we talked, but I also don't want to discourage people from embarking on a path of self-discovery and knowledge. And so to think that I could have been the reason somebody gave up on that would be not something I could really live with.
I do have my criticisms of the way he's doing things, and I do let him know. But he's very intent on doing things a certain way, you know. But somehow he's actually making progress as a business, doing things that he's been doing. I don't know exactly what he has been doing aside from what he shows me, because apparently when I tuned in, he was on some system I haven't actually seen before. But you know what he does show me, I do have criticisms for.
It's essentially it's a question without an answer, without something to grab onto to calibrate. There's no way of judging the truth value of an assertion. So you basically have your own feelings. It's like, well, is he right? Well, I don't know. Like, are any of these people right? Is like, what's his name? Eric Weinstein? Is he right? You know?
Well, it's more like, you know, do you agree with him or not?
Well,
I
And you
agree with
clearly,
his results.
Jen
you
clearly
agree
does
with
not agree with what he says.
well, his statements are in the domain of numerological mysticism, Domingo. So they're like their truth values. I would say is probably unfalsifiable. So it's like unfalsifiability is actually not a bad thing. It's tautological though. So it's a necessary but not a sufficient condition for something to be unfalsifiable. It's basically saying, you know, nothing.
Well, you would know, right? I mean,
What?
I said you would know, right? I mean, because, you know, you're the one that says that your model predicts everything.
Well, it's
You
not.
you you,
It's
you
not
you know a
going
thing or
to
two about
everything.
unfalsifiability and tautological, right?
I think that a person who said they had a true theory of everything, that would raise some eyebrows, because it seems like in terms of information that one human couldn't assimilate all the information that's out there. That seems to be uncontestable. So what I'm saying is that my theory can give you a framework for answering questions, and your level of precision in the answer is going to depend on how much data you have calibrated. And also to some extent your willingness to start over and change your I don't want to say change your axioms, but change your numerological mysticism.
Comply.
Well, it's like it's the dualism versus non-dualism argument. It's like it reduces to, well, is God everything, or is God separate and we're the complement of God and God is outside of us? Like there's essentially that question, which is hard to answer. Like, how do you know what the answer to that question is? You have to be able
Resistance
to
is
speak for God.
futile.
We have
Your
to be
axioms will be assimilated.
I
You
honestly am just trying to help,
you
but
will,
I mean something that can be
will join
washed
the
away,
collective.
something that can be destroyed by someone else's rhetoric is not worth holding on to. I'm not saying I want to dilute people's individuality. I just don't think people have much of an understanding of what that word even means.
I don't know. To me, just I mean, I've already talked to you in private about how I perceive him, but
When you talk in private, do you still have that filter on?
no, not always.
I've heard his real voice before, if that's what you're wondering. He's been around for a while. He's got several of them. Can we hear some different ones, please?
No, not right now.
Okay, he's got it set up and he can't change it. But yeah, he's a classic Entrosphere character. When did you come around anyway? I know it was, I don't want to say you came with Cade.
No. I am. Do not describe me as an Entrosphere character, please.
He's a Gug or a Grug, whatever. I forget what the term you had was. It's been years since I even heard that.
I haven't used that rhetoric in years because I changed my rhetoric like every 6 months and it works really well. But yeah, that one's an
Yeah,
awesome one. I'm definitely going to
Jen-
reintroduce that one in the future.
Jen used to say Grug tier all the time. Grug tier.
Yeah, Grug. That's what it was.
No, Gug is also a thing. It's just, deep lore. That's all. Because I don't use that rhetorical strategy anymore.
I'm
thank
on a whole
you,
other. I'm on a
Glorious.
whole other level.
Thank you for saying that I'm interesting. I really appreciate it. I'm super interested in the subjects I'm interested in. I don't think that many people are, but I don't think it matters because the people who are interested in it kind of overcompensate for the people who aren't, even if it's a small number. Who the hell wants
Where's
to be
Ga-
surrounded by people who don't give a shit? I don't know where he
Where's
is.
Ga-
I wish I knew, but he's just like, this is just, I guess, what he does. Just like disappears for months. Like I do wish I knew because like I'm concerned about him, but he just sort of, I think, unplugs from the internet periodically.
Gandalf we're talking about, right?
Well, yeah, that's who you were going to start talking about, wasn't it?
Right. Okay. It's just. Did you hear me pronounce the letter G? Was that it? Okay.
Or the dream is left as permanently entangled. Your choice. No, just kidding.
Oh,
Choice.
please.
Hey, I'm just
T800.
there. I'm just there. But somebody had a similar one. Do you want, I won't read it out loud, but I'll send it to you if you want. It just tripped me out, dude. It did. Anyway, let's change the subject.
I think it's funny that you saw yourself as the Terminator hunting
you
people down.
saw me. No, you saw me. I don't see myself that way. That's how you saw me. Don't you understand?
No way. No way. You had nothing to do with that dream.
Oh no, then that's why I had the converse of it, right? I know when there's other people in my dreams and it's just me. Like there's obviously a difference.
Oh man. Howie, how do you know Jen?
I kind of vaguely remember. I'm pretty sure it was the meta right that we met through, like late 2015, early 2016.
That was fucking epic, man. That was such a fun time. Like that was right around where the Trump thing was just so glad to be around at that point in history. To sink my teeth into what was happening at that point is just how could you put a price tag on that? That's like a gazillion dollars worth right there.
Are you also Jewish, Howie?
Not even close. Although I do practice the Kabbalah, my stepfamily is Jewish.
So how's that not even close?
Because I'm not Jewish. I'm like fucking Hitler Youth looking type.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far. You kind of look like an alien. So I guess that's why you go for the Aryan Kangs thing. Because if everyone adopts that.
Alien Kangs. Alien Kangs.
Yeah, just because you look
Ancient
like
aliens.
you have to structure an ideology around it. I mean, I'm not structuring around my ideology around myself because I just
Yeah, but
wouldn't-
the weird thing is that there's still evidence for it.
Oh, sure. Evidence. Evidence.
Genetic evidence.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that before. So,
yeah, you have,
are
and
you
you
surprised that my Aryan Kangs debate never happened with Conops, the dipshit?
I wasn't aware that there was a debate that was supposed to take place. I haven't been.
He challenged me to a debate like 8 months ago, and he said he just needed about 2 weeks to prepare.
He doesn't, but he doesn't even debate in good faith. I mean, that guy's a total. Ugh. That guy is a traitor. He's a traitor to his own kind. Not his own kind. He's just an enemy of the state. He's an enemy. He's a traitor to Europa.
I've been working on a historical analysis. Because, like, I don't even think people know what it means to be European, dude. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying people. It's just really hard to, like, compress everything because, like, nothing makes sense if you don't go back far enough. And going back so far is just, like, stuff stops making sense if you go back past a certain point. It's like, how could we possibly remember what it was like, before evolution? Like, come on.
Before evolution?
Well, whatever we were before we were this, like, how, I mean, there would have been a quantum state transition that would have separated us, because that's how macroevolution happens. So there's a good chance you're going to lose, a lot of information. So it's like, how could you relate to what you were before you're what you're now? Well, I don't know.
Was your debate going to be European Kangs versus Indian Kangs? Vedic Kangs?
I don't really think Conops's worldview is self-consistent because his worldview seems to be that no matter what, he wants to be able to condescendingly scoff at people. So he basically adopts whatever position he thinks will allow him to condescendingly scoff at people no matter what. It's a weird hack, I'll admit.
He's just a coward. He's a mainstream gatekeeper, and he's just dishonest. He is another Claire Caw.
I think Claire, out of anybody, is most honestly, in a way, like the mirror image of Kurt Doolittle. He's like,
remember.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, remember when Claire and Conops had a major falling out, and Conops was really hating Claire? I remember I was just like loving every minute of it because basically it's like they had nobody left, and then they were both like trying to buddy up to.
It is funny to watch Conops fail at virtue signaling and then going on Claire's and realizing that that's like anti-virtue signaling, and it's just like he's funny and he's sort of a demonstration of why you can't fake knowledge, because it's obvious. Like, even if people listening to a conversation don't know what anybody in the convo is talking about, they know Conops is like, there's just a smug condescension about his whole vibe that's self-evident.
Yeah, like he sounds like the type of guy that uses a cigarette holder, like a long cigarette holder.
I know exactly what you mean. And in some sense, that's the cultural divide between Europe and the Americas, because there is definitely a different culture. Like, you can see it in the accent, right? Like, there's a certain relaxation. I was like, I wonder if that has to do with population density. Accent and population density. And I was thinking, like, I should totally try to analyze that to see, but then I'd have to be able to measure the entropy of an accent. Do you guys think that's possible?
What do you think of the fact that Claire and her Queen's English, she really she lays it on thick, right?
Well, that'd be an understatement.
And her slow talking and her wheezy inhales between sentences.
I don't know what you mean by wheezy. I'm just thinking of the chair that
She's like, I can hear her breathe sometimes, like in between sentences. And then she'll keep talking, and it's just, oh god, she's horrible.
But there's something about her accent that's appealing, right?
Well, there's something similar to Con Op Sinclair, like the way that they speak. This like pseudo posh, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's manufactured to sound smart, and that's the funny thing is that it usually disguises such a depth of ignorance that it's
It's
staggering.
like it's like the Boston Brahmins.
Oh God.
The remnants of like
Don't even get me started on a fucking yeah.
the Boston Brahmins and their accent, dude. Didn't we meet already at at the, at the tennis club? I'll have a dirty martini, darling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
that's
gotta
why I
drop
spent so
out.
much time
I'm
learning that culture so that I could go in and just shit on the floor of every fucking party they ever had and do it in their language.
I gotta drop out, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for
Peace.
joining us. Yeah, I guess we can call it a stream unless there's something else you want to talk about.
No, I'm good.
Well, it's great to chat with you. And yeah, thanks for sharing your opinions. And did you have any final words or words of wisdom to give to the audience?
Uh,
Are you doing any streams now, by the way? Not to be like a fanboy.
no, no, I haven't. I haven't been keeping up with many streams actually. I sort of popped in tonight by fluke.
That is a tragedy.
And
But thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. You're always a good talent. And hopefully we'll see you again in the near future.
thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
All right, take care, folks.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. So I'll just spend some time now talking about my theory, but it's going to just take me a minute because I opened the wrong PowerPoint presentation and I got to open another one. So that's just, that's my world for anyone who wants to hang around and listen to me talk about axioms and the hard problem of consciousness. We'll be setting that up right now. Alrighty. So let me just hopefully do this extremely easy transition and we'll get started. So I'm not done this yet, but I just thought I'd like kind of go through it just for the practice. And so the context here is that JF was good night, Boreas. JF was having a thing with Keith Woods, who did this thing about consciousness, and then Jeff did a response video, and then he did a response video, the response video, and then Jeff went back to doing a response video, the response video, the response video. So it's just sort of one of those things where it's like, honestly, I'm just glad that people are thinking about this stuff in the first place because it takes a lot of balls to approach a problem that is this complicated. That's why historical review is really good to do because it's like, context, you know, you want to do something is like, okay, I want to go to the moon. Well, has anyone ever done it before? Okay, historical study, you check to see whether someone has done this plan before. And obviously, people have understood consciousness before. So I did an introduction. We're going to talk about my homeboys, Hammeroff and Penrose. And I put Hammeroff first because honestly, his contribution is better karma because he really did the whole stoic sit back and be like, consider the problem from as bird's eye view type of level as possible is the impression that I get. And he's the one who actually came up with this theory. Whereas Penrose kind of just like, I don't want to say he's your average physics pencil neck geek, useless, condescending priest wannabe, loser who can't explain anything. I don't think he's terrible. I've just never heard him say anything that I was like, whoa. Whereas with Hammeroff, it's like, good on you, bud, for trying. And there's literally no way the first person who tries is going to be right. The amount of technology you need to have access to be right in the first try is just like, nobody has this right now. So anyway, hard problem of consciousness is hard. Blah blah blah. How do we give a unified field model? Of what we experience as the day to day, that which we call consciousness. Alrighty. So they've got this word qualia. I only use words that I feel like I absolutely need to. I haven't started using this qualia word. If I see the need to, I'll introduce it. But some of these words, I know eigenstates are hard to understand. It's very beautiful when you can't understand them because it relates down back to the harmonics that are so important. So it's like, I don't want to bring in eigenstates, but I gotta do it to you. I gotta do it to you because I can't lie to you. Right. So whatever. Back to this explanation here. We got yeah, I just wanted to say props to Hammeroff because obviously, you know, like JF, he's doing something, he's actually doing science. And the chance of being right on the first pass with things as they are is about zero. But the fact that you're trying is respectable. And what you know, when you realize what the right answer is, you realize that your answer wasn't totally wrong. It just didn't have that backbone that it would needed to be totally right. Okay. So, all right, let me just see what I was writing here because I didn't totally organize this so well. There was actually really only one point I wanted to get to, which was the historical review. I haven't really fully done the intro yet, so I don't want to bore you guys with that. But I've basically parsed up the timeline into some, they're not, I didn't try to make them approximately the same size. I just tried to make them actual eras, like that, which can be described by a particular, I don't want to say theology here, but you, you know, so. Howie, why does he use a hilarious voice mod? We don't know. We don't ask why. Domingo's the way that he does, but we just acknowledge that he's going to do his thing. And that's all good. So, yeah, back to the historical review. Just want to make sure that this is all good to go. I don't have names for these earlier epochs, but they inform knowledge because knowledge basically comes from somewhere. And then it changes forms, then it gets put to different applications, but you can't just like have this magical knowledge singularity. And so we have to understand that, yeah, there was a lot of knowledge in the distant past, and then as it got more recent, there was a degradation of knowledge. And there's certainly a lot of evidence to support the position that things were a lot better in the distant past and in some ways technologically more advanced. So you got your pre-Mahabharat phase, which is mostly characterized by this drying of this river and basically desertification, which is where your motivation for immigration happens. And then you have your degradation as a result of all the destruction of the Mahabharat, and that's going back about 5,000 years. Then you have your solar cult. So this is sort of like trying to put into perspective why we're experiencing civilizational growing pains because we saturated a large amount of population into cities very quickly, and our ideology hasn't really kept up with that. And then you got your era of Christendom. So yeah, just to make it clear about your solar cult, Christianity is sort of like the final quote unquote solar cult. Because I mean, I've seen a lot of arguments about Islam, but one stacks up is this a lunar cult. So going with that, these are the important aspects of it, is that you have this sort of increase in the practice of things that sound right but aren't. And so when you're using this Socratic method, you can spend a long time in the debate phase without ever actually justifying your axioms. So a lot of these like really shitty axioms got sort of jammed in. And then that gave way to like, so basically the way to look at it is that Pythagoreanism or whatever gave way to Platonism. And then you have this generalized ossification of wisdom and a tunnel vision. And you already have this sort of superstitious stuff going on with Christianity where it's like, don't look at the spirits at all. So they're just like only doing science, right? So this allows for math and science to get way better. And then you have your another immigration of this Babylonian exile. Era of Christendom. So this one is again approximate, right? But you have what I've tried to list here are the effects that it had on the general thought currents. Because we think the way we do now because of what's happened in the past. And we have to kind of grow up civilizationally at some stage, and maybe by understanding history, and people were, enjoyed a way better quality of life when they had better access to superior wisdom, is a sort of hard argument to make when you don't have all this historical backdrop, because in a lot of ways things seem really good right now, and they are good in some ways, but it's not sustainable due to the amount of garbage that it creates and all these other things. So it's like, we don't really want to get rid of all the consumerism, but we also know it's bad. So there needs to be a spiritual change of belief, or changing your mind or whatever, before anything can really happen. But this is just the backdrop, because this is happening in a larger context. People seem to want to not strawman, but scapegoat. It's like, it is appealing to want a scapegoat, but when you do that, you're eschewing responsibility, and it's not about individual so much as collective responsibility, and just acknowledging that maybe it goes beyond a sort of simplistic, cartoonish view of what, take your pick of a random situation where people think they know what the ethical approach is. So I think it's a good idea to have a look at Pythagoras, because he is sort of more in line with how I think. He's obviously not as great as I am, but he had some very good beliefs, and his work was widely respected by Plato. You got to ask yourself why. Well, it's because he was able to speak probably similarly to how I do, just faster, more precise than most people, suggesting a superior quality of consciousness and all his influence even after his death. So you got your general degradation of spiritualism and spirituality, and the argument is basically that this knowledge about consciousness is only really accessible through spirituality, through practice and devotion, and nobody else has really ever had any type of insight but these people. But even these people's insights have been hard to establish scientifically. So that's basically where I'm approaching it from, and that's what I'm working on right now. So I've been going at this for quite a while, but that was actually a really fun stream to me, because it never really got to a point where I felt stressed out by what was happening, because I was just channeling my aggression in real time. Because for him, I kind of feel like that's just got to happen, because the gentle approach has failed. Whereas, if a gentle approach can work, all the better, but it doesn't always work. So whatever. Thanks for listening to my rant, everyone, and hopefully see you again soon. But we'll let you know what's going on with future episodes. I have about 2-week commitment, so there may be a schedule change or cancellation of episodes, but we'll try to keep some type of content coming out. I like to keep a regular practice of this also, so take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, but that's just so to say, a worthless opinion of.
It's so important that she can't be told, she won't be told that it's wrong. And
bringing it back to Church of Entropy and her attack dog Gandalf the White.
Why don't you learn to shut up and fuck goddamn logic?
They control the media, and the media is capable of making the sheeple believe in anything.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, we've had these streams, and I've been doing with Church of Entropy, and she's been bringing on new people, and we did those streams on stream etiquette. We walked through the technology.
I have very strongly negative opinions of the kind of Brundle clique.
Is she trying to garner herself cult prestige by associating herself with a retard?